rather than try and cover the whole lot. And when we do the report, we'll try and take these in as well. But inequality seems to be one of the big ones. I think this business of misinformation or subjective information is another. And then it's really, I'd say unaccountable elites is probably part of the model we're going to talk about. So I'd rather not see that as a challenge. I see it more as a cause of the challenges, if you like. And we're going to talk about it anyway. So I'd like to offer a choice. So we're going to do inequality and the misinformation or subjective information, whatever you want to call it. And I'd like one more. And I think the choices are probably ecological collapse, regulatory arbitrage, apathy, what else? What else we got?
Profit before need.
Profit before need.
I'd imagine that not everyone knows what regulated
Is that a good reason to do it, do you think?
No, just maybe it will allow us to make an informed decision as to whether to have it in or not.
Ah, right. Well, regulatory arbitrage is basically, under the World Bank, there is a competitiveness survey. So the most competitive countries, and we're all about competing in the world against the Chinese or the Americans or the Latin Americans or whatever, regulatory arbitrage is that by ranking everyone in terms of their competitiveness, tax rates, regulations, all those things, basically countries impose the shock doctrine on themselves, which essentially means they do privatisation, lower taxes and all those things. So, and it also applies across financial services, it could apply across food, it could apply across anything that is regulated. Basically, the more lightly you're regulated, the more competitive your economy.
Yeah.
So do we want to do that as the third one?
Can I have one more sentence on what regulatory arbitrage is as a consequence?
One sentence, because we're running out of time.
Yeah, okay. And the consequences of all that are that large corporates and holders of capital can bid down the conditions of work, of employment, of taxation in their own interests against the interests of elected governments, the 99%. So it's internationally, if you like, the 99% collaborating together against the 1% ripping them off and having a kind of negative auction, you know, race to the bottom.
Let's cut through this and we'll focus on the the unaccountable elites and what they do and how they do it, because that might bring it in. So we're going to do inequality, we're going to do information, and we're going to do the unaccountable elites. Okay?
Misinformation or information?
Information generally. I think the whole thing is fairly broad. Now, originally, I was going to allow 25 minutes for each section. We've just lost 10 minutes, so we're going to do this, the first one in 20 minutes. And I think we'll kick off with inequality, if everybody's happy with that.
Yep.
Okay. Before we kick off on inequality, I'd just like to show you something. Because we want to put it in the context of this system. And I did put in a slide just to show this is the mechanism of interest in West Germany between around the 1980s, 80s and 90s. Basically, everybody pays interest, and on average people pay half of what they pay in the price of a ticket or food or whatever is interest. But it doesn't treat everybody equally. So the first 8 deciles by income up to here pay more interest than they receive. The 9th decile break even. The 10th decile receive twice as much as they pay. And the 0.01% receive 2,000 times what they receive. So it's way through the roof. So I just wanted to show you that in terms of inequality. So going back to our model, let's talk about the levers of power. What do we think the levers of power are? And to give you, if you like, a start, that influence inequality. Basically, the levers of power are politics, economics, the military-industrial media academic complex, and you could probably think of a few more big levers that actually affect the way things happen in the world. So what I want to draw out from people is what they think the most important levers of power are in respect of inequality. Anybody want to?
I'll give you one. I think it's the lack of law on the quantity of money that we receive for all our daily activities. So at the moment, the 0.1% go for as much as they want, and they get it. And there is no law in society which says no person can earn more than 3 times anybody else. If you had some sort of law like that, it would straight away even
So
up the
you
inequality.
think we could reduce inequality by applying laws?
A commonly agreed law that's properly applied.
Anybody want to argue with that?
Well, if they control the laws, how will we change that?
Never mind how we do it, but let's just take it as a proposition. If we could change the law, is that the ideal way to reduce inequality? I've forgotten your name. I'm sorry.
My name is Dan.
Dan. Yes, sorry.
I wanted to draw people's attention when it comes to laws to what's called a state of emergency. And America's got a very rigorous constitution, but all the president has to do is declare a state of emergency, which they do regularly. And they can bypass Congress altogether. So you might have a law passed about to equalise people's incomes, but the powers that be can bypass any law you like, including the Constitution, and do whatever they like. So states of emergency.
Joe.
I think laws like that are important, but surely there's just laws or either not having a certain law, such as capping high incomes, or not. It's just symptomatic of the political ideology we have, and that's the base, the root of what we're talking about, the lever, as you say. So we have a pervasive free marketist neoliberal ideology that says that people should be able to earn in excess, as long as they're following the laws of the land. That's surely the problem. More
So you see it as structural,
yeah,
rather
far
than
more
being
structural than-
remedied through the law.
Yeah.
Linda.
If we're going to talk about inequality, the biggest inequality in the world is probably gender equality, and recognising that first might help with thinking on the levers, etc.
Excellent thought.
I think the way forward with it is changing values, really. Change the values of society, so that, because at the moment we respect people with lots of money, that, you know, we respect bankers because they've got money and Porsches and houses.
I think we'll come on to that in information. That
Well, no, but if we were just to change
yeah,
the
I
values
understand,
of society.
but we're going to address values and that sort of thing. I think Dave was before you, Mary.
Yeah. Just, it's not necessarily either or, it could be both and. So I think to improve our levels of equality, you need some laws, but the mechanisms and so on, and you know what we believe money is an important part of that would be it.
There, Dave?
I've finished.
What? Oh, right. Sorry. What I'm trying to get at is not what we do about it, but what is actually causing inequality. I think until we understand what the cause is, then how to address it is not really possible. Mary, sorry.
The tax system props up low wages. So this tax credit where people get topped up from low wages, so they can be working all the hours in the day and night and not earn enough to pay their rent.
Yeah, I know what the
and
symptoms
so,
are, but what is the cause?
but
What
the-
is the lever that is causing this? Sorry, I've
She's
forgotten your
saying
name.
it's
Sylvia.
Well, there's the money in politics, like the corporate ownership of politicians for political donations. And so it's got to a point where the financial elites have the politicians as their sort of manservants that just do their bidding. So I think this feeds into the tax.
But what does that cause in terms of drivers of inequality? Where does the inequality
Policies.
come from? The policies.
Yeah, I mean, I think the tax issue is, I mean, if you look at the tax since the 80s and since Thatcherism, you know, when the taxes went
So
down,
you see tax
inequality
as a
went up.
driver.
I mean, if you look at the graphs, it's very simple.
Right. Eddie, as you haven't
I
spoken.
would say a lack of vision about being alive and the imagination in the modern world.
what it means to be alive?
Yeah, to actually really start to look into that.
Joe?
I reiterate this gentleman's point here about values. I think values are an incredibly important part of it. We're taught to be selfish, self-interested, narcissistic, individualistic. Jeremy Rifkin talks a lot about the empathic society, where if you taught kids from a young age to actually care about each other rather than compete against each other, and a lot of change would flow from that. So I think values are really important.
Yeah, I know they're important, but I was looking for actually mechanical systemic drivers, if there are some. Ole?
I think it is quite natural that wages for work, labor, is declining compared to land value, rental value. So those who are not able to get a share of the rental labor, rental
So,
rent will come behind all the time.
So land privatisation of the land and resources is driving inequality. Those that have control of land are structurally advantaged over those that don't.
Always, yes.
Right. Is there anybody who would disagree with that proposition? Okay. Dan, I think, was next.
I'm going to say I think the reason there is inequality is because the people who have power want it that way. They use their power.
Yeah, I realise that, but I'm trying to find what levers are they pulling to make it happen. Sorry, your name?
Andy.
Andy.
I think the shareholder cap system that works at the moment doesn't help at all, because it drives organisations to think very short term, it drives them to think financially, and it causes behaviours within organisations that treat a lot of people as resources to be optimised, and people who have a weak bargaining position therefore get low salaries, and it contributes to this systemic problem of people at the bottom getting virtually nothing, people at the top getting a lot.
So you see the joint stock company under company law as being a fundamental driver of inequality?
Yes, because it's financially driven. There aren't any other values that are included in that calculation.
Okay. Your name, Martin?
Yuan.
Yuan.
Yeah. Education. What I mean by that is because the curriculum will be given from the first classes depends on each country. It's specifically limited, so we don't get the full spectrum of information we can get. So education leads to inequality because we are taught that we are kind of different or something, or not equal. Each step of the education we have taps into that differentiation. And we might be different, but at the same time we're equal. So education separates.
That's an interesting one. Mary?
I wanted to say that because there's a lot of wickedness about, people have an enormous amount of goodwill. You know, the first instinct of people is to be good to others. And because they don't understand what the problem is, they do their best to compensate. There's a whole lot of volunteering, giving. You can't get anybody to buy anything anymore. You have to give it away. And it's actually it actually supports the wickedness, because people are sort of countering it in the only way they can, because they don't understand how to change the structure.
But that's more a response to the inequality rather than a fundamental driver of inequality.
The collusion between politics and capital.
Yeah.
I think the sort of test is, like, if you took that out of it, what would you have? For all these things, if you took them out, what would you have? And it seems to me if that collusion between politics and capital wasn't there, you could have something really different.
Okay. Janos?